Then another thing is our expression. I think one of the things that helps people to contain stress or to overcome stress is being able to express themselves adequately. There are studies that show that people who don't express themselves adequately come down with certain symptoms of somatization. When I say somatization, that means someone could come and say, oh, I have this crawling sensation on my body, on my skin. And they think it's because there is an illness in their body, but they don't know that it's just because of the cooped up emotions that they have. People present with anxiety, depression because of chronic stress, because over time they have not learned how to express themselves adequately. So being able to express yourself adequately is so important in a socially acceptable way, of course, because if you express yourself in an unacceptable way, one could end up in jail. One could end up damaging relationships, business relationships, and all. But there are forums, and that's why we have associations. That's why we have so many platforms. That's why people can call into radio. This program, for example, that we're having, this City People program, it's a laudable effort to make people to come in, yes, and express themselves. People loosen up, people share their stories, and contribute to the general good for humanity. So expression is so important. We need to express ourselves adequately. Sometimes we can do that when we engage in hobbies, when we engage in things that we love, like dancing, singing, playing certain games. I know during this COVID-19, people were cooped up at some point at home, and some people were so bored, and they were looking for ways of ensuring that they could cope with the boredom. So at the end of the day, a lot of people had to generate a lot of activities to ensure that they were not bored, because boredom is also a source of stress. When you are not doing anything, unemployment, you are not working, it's a source of mental stress and tension. So if one is able to do this, then it can also help us to cope with stress. So I think that's one of the things we need to do today. We can write down our hobbies, the things that we love, and find a way of including that into our daily schedule. The other thing I would just mention before maybe I allow time for other questions is to also find a way of expanding or being visionary. People who were visionary, who saw that would be a way of getting ahead during this time, were exposed to less stressful situations. So people need to expand their horizon and find a way of developing themselves, self-development. That's why that's why we learn a trade. We go for an apprenticeship. We go for one degree or the other because we want to develop yourself. So people should not stay at the same level they are. They need to grow themselves. They need to challenge themselves. Not unhealthily, because there is unhealthy competition when you're trying to be like someone. But once you are able to know that this is my own purpose, this is the way in which I can make myself relevant, and you build on that, that is more healthy than trying to compete with someone. And last of all, you must try and adopt healthy lifestyles. In the face of a stressful situation, we discovered that to fight COVID-19, our nutrition was so important. What we're eating, what we're drinking, there were so many analogies. People came up to say, oh, you have to mix ginger with garlic, with fruits, with leaves, and but people had to come up with different ways. And there are a lot of testimonies out there about how people overcame the COVID-19 situation. So I think I will leave it at that. And if you have any questions,
but how
easy?
Yes, I like to ask, how easy is it to develop a positive mindset, to be optimistic, and have a great mindset at a time like this, because of the overwhelming pressure from the society and issues like COVID-19 and all that?
Yes. Thank you for that question, sir. It's a big issue, but when we're talking about lifestyle change, it has to be intentional. It doesn't come. It's not an automatic thing.
Okay.
It doesn't just come upon you and you say, "Oh, I can do this." You have to intentionally and deliberately make an attempt to do that. Um, One of the things I advise people to do is to keep a diary or a journal, and that has helped me personally. You keep a diary. Whenever things happen during this season, the things that have happened, you can actually write them down and write how you're feeling. And then after you have written how you have felt about that negative situation, you write something positive, what we call positive self-statements. I'm going to make it. I will not fail. I will overcome. And you might develop a mantra. It could be a mantra from what maybe Nelson Mandela said, maybe a quote from your favorite author or your mentor. It could be a scripture if you're a person of faith. You just take that scripture or that mantra or that quote or a poem and you begin to say it to yourself continuously. In fact, you wake up in the morning and you look at where you have written it on your wall, and that becomes ingrained within your mind. So you have to visualize it. If you visualize it, you can achieve it. So you just have to keep on telling yourself that I would overcome. Another way in which we could make this um, a positive, develop a positive mindset would be to engage in some form of relaxation exercises. One of them is breathing, learning how to take deep breaths. So you encounter something very negative, you are not happy about it. Instead of reacting to that situation, just go to a corner and take a deep breath. Breathe in like this and breathe out. And when you're breathing, you can count 1 to 10 or you count 1 to 5. So studies have shown that when you're able to breathe in like that and breathe out, your body becomes more relaxed. And you can do that 5 times in the morning, 5 times in the evening, or whenever you encounter a difficult period. Just breathe in and breathe out. And then begin to visualize a positive situation. We call it guided imagery in mental health or in psychiatry. Guided imagery means you focus on something positive, something that you love. You could even think about where you last spent your holiday, maybe with a loved one. You can look at the photographs and visualize the time you spent together with them. Um, you could go into nature, look at the nature around you, the green grass, the trees, you look at the stars, the sky, just look at the environment and begin to meditate and appreciate nature for what it is. When one is able to do this regularly, you will feel more optimistic about life. But if you are focusing on the negative things, you're always going to check, oh, how many have COVID-19 now? Oh, you're switching on CNN and you're seeing all the bad news. In fact, that's one of the things that makes people's stress levels to go up. Someone called me at one time and was saying, Doctor, I'm so scared. I'm so afraid. What if I get this COVID? So, but why not visualize the other aspect? What if I don't get this COVID? If I don't do what I'm supposed to do now, once I have sidetracked myself at the end of the day. So it's better to even imagine the good that will come out of the situation than to keep on being afraid or panicky about the negative situation.
Okay. And like we said, the images we see, the reports we see on TV affects us and all of that. But how does that? How can we deal with that? How do we? I mean, refuse to get worried about and think positive.
Well, that's also another situation. For me, I made sure that I wasn't just going online every
Okay.
now and then. I would only check the tabloids once in a while. Because so far as you are looking at those tabloids, you are going to feel stretched. You are going to feel worried. Whatever our mind sees, whatever our eyes see is projected to our brain. And once it's projected to your brain, the brain is going to send signals to your body. And you start feeling scared, you start feeling uncomfortable, you start feeling afraid. So there are two ways. You can decide that it's just once in a day. You check your social media, especially the areas where once you know that it is on this particular social media channel that they talk about these things, you can decide that you're going to check it once a day or once in 3 days or once in a week. But we shouldn't have the habit of just checking the numbers over and over again. It has to be a deliberate attempt um, to avoid that. If we are able to do that and look for other things that would make us happier, for example, engaging in exercise, physical activity, especially what we call moderate intensity exercise, it boosts the mood. And it's one of the things we recommend for people who have anxiety or depression or any emotional disturbance. We discovered that when you're able to exercise regularly, then it will help you to feel happier. For people who lose their sex drive, for example, they will discover that their sex drive improves. For people who are not able to eat, they will discover that all those things improve because of the physical activity that they're involved in. It releases what we call endorphins into your system. Those endorphins, that happy hormone, like serotonin, it just releases it into your system and you discover that you feel happy. So if you're the kind of person that is always sitting down all the time, you're not moving, you're more likely to be depressed. And some studies have even shown that when we sit down for too long at a time, the size of the brain can even shrink. And we are more prone to depression. And once someone is depressed, the tendency for the person to become suicidal is there. So in order to handle stressful situations, we tell people avoid being sedentary, move around, exercise. Sometimes when I know I'm going to be on my system for long periods, I set my timer. I make sure that I set it to 20 minutes. So every 20 minutes, I stand up, I move around, even if it's just to walk around my room, stretch my limbs, and then I come back and sit down. So it's very important that we exercise regularly. It will boost our mood. It will make us feel happy. It will take our mind off the stressful events and situations, and we'll be able to approach whatever stressful circumstance it is more logically and more rationally than taking a rash decision.
So you actually feel that issues of anxiety, being anxious, being worried unnecessarily, all of that can be, is it managed or can be treated? Let me put it that way. Which is the realistic?
Yes, sir. These situations, those illnesses can be treated. Normally, when we are managing mental disturbances or disorders, they are treated in two ways. It's treated either through lifestyle adjustments or through drugs. So for people that have anxiety disorders, we actually prescribe medication for them. But, we don't say someone has an anxiety disorder until it has lasted a certain period. Maybe it has lasted more than 2 weeks and it has affected that person's ability to cope with life negatively or adversely. So all of us have anxiety all the time, but it doesn't mean that we have anxiety disorders. So the people that have anxiety disorders, they won't be able to function. They will lose function, maybe bodily function. They can't take care of themselves. They can't go out to work just because of that anxiety. It's like it handicaps them. But all of us have some measure of anxiety, which hasn't degenerated into an anxiety disorder. But if we don't learn how to manage that stressful situation, it can actually degenerate into an anxiety disorder. And a lot of people too, at the end of the day, can develop depression as a result. Can be treated. They can be treated medically. So if anyone has developed depression, has developed anxiety, the person should seek medical help. it has gone on for 2 weeks or more, and the person is not coping with life, is not able to go to work, is not able to take care of themselves, and not able to participate in social activities that they were previously interested in, then they should see a physician for medical attention.
Would you say that the problem of stress has been on the increase lately, or it's always been like that before?
Yes, sir, I would say so. I would say so. When a situation like this occurs, then definitely we'll have more stress. The stress levels of people will go up. And the way to know, they do a self-assessment. There are some online tools with which you could actually do some form of self-assess stress level is. Generally, your stress level will be high when you go through a life event. And the life events that have occurred in the lives of people in recent times have of loved ones. So when you have a lot of people dying in a particular environment or a city or anywhere, the stress levels go up because of fear, because of grief and anxiety. Other things that would make people's stress levels go up, the fact that they wanted to do something. Some people wanted to get married. They had already set wedding dates during that lockdown period, and not being able to harness all the resources that they had paid for because of that lockdown, because of stress for some people. And I knew someone who came to me and quite worried about the fact that he had wanted to get married and they had to postpone it. So people's stress levels went up. Another way to ascertain this, pornographic sites became more active because people were looking for ways to engage themselves. So the pornographic sites online, the activity became higher. And then we had higher reports of sexual abuse and assaults. That always happens when there's a critical situation like that going on. If there's a war, you find out that there'll be more abuse going on. When there is a rebellion going on, we find out that we have more of such assaults, which will increase the stress levels. I remember in the area where I live, during the COVID-19, we had more attacks from armed robbers. They were raiding. That was their own way of responding to that situation. And so they were raiding many of the communities. And so a lot of estates had to do something. They had to organize security in order to protect themselves. So all those are signs that people's stress levels will be high. So definitely stress is something that we encounter on an everyday basis, but it worsens when we encounter difficulties, when there is war, when there is sickness, when there are outbreaks like this. And so the whole community wants to find a way of adjusting, and individuals also want to find a way to adjust to that situation.
Have you also noticed that many people often don't know that some of the health challenges they have are stress related, or they come as a result of being stressed or stressed out? Have you noticed, or have you noticed this in some of the patients coming to you?
Yes, you are very right about that, sir. A lot of people come and they don't know that the symptoms they are having are as a result of stress, as a result of anxiety. Let me give an example. I saw a patient last week, and her complaint was that she had been having headache. She had had this headache for over a month, and she felt that maybe it was typhoid. She felt it was malaria. But by the time I took a history from her, she didn't have any of the other symptoms that would suggest that this person had maybe malaria or typhoid or even any other acute illness. And she wanted to be tested. Of course, we needed to exclude any form of illness. So eventually we did a lot of tests. blood tests and all of that, but all of them came out normal. We tried to do some screening tests to find out whether she had um, maybe a chronic inflammation going on within her system, but everything came out clean. So we delved into her social history, and I got to know that she was facing some pressure from her mom to get married. In fact, she was the one that was saying that, or could it just be because of this situation? Because I was even asking her, is there anything in your life right now that you're not too happy about? Is there anything worrisome? That was the only thing she could pinpoint. She said she was facing a lot of pressure from her family to get married. And she said it had been mounting up within the last few weeks. So that was the only thing we could tie up with her symptom. And we've had a lot of patients like this, maybe because they were facing some pressure from their boss at work, they started having similar symptoms. So yes, a lot of people that come like that, or they come telling you that I have a feeling of pressure on my head, I have a burning sensation on my chest. You do a chest x-ray, you do a lot of investigations, you don't find anything. Most of those things are what we call psychosomatic, that linked between the brain and the body. A signal has come from the brain that all is not well. And so the mind begins to generate some signals that the body recognizes and translates into those symptoms. And so that's why when a patient comes, one should not just be in a hurry to just write a prescription. Sometimes it's not the prescription that makes the difference, but the diagnosis, the right diagnosis, and being able to counsel that person on how to overcome that stressful situation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makinde. It's been a very interesting session. We'd like to bring you back soon to talk about maybe other aspects that you think would be of immense interest to our viewers. So what's your, as we round up, what's your message to all those watching you all over the world?
Yes, my message to everyone will be that we can't escape stress, but we can control it if we change our perception and the way in which we visualize the situation at hand. I would like to conclude by talking about mindfulness. Mindfulness is a theory, a scientific theory that has been studied, and it's been discovered that when we are mindful about whatever we are doing, when we do it joyfully, when we do it with gratitude, with thankfulness, then we are less likely to be stretched or stressed. So we should realize that the stress that we are feeling, the damage to our bodies, has to do with what our mind is seeing at that time. So if you can change the way your mind is seeing a particular situation, and you can embrace the good and look for the good in whatever situation it is. There was a lot of good that came to people in this COVID-19. Look at what happened with some companies like Zoom. They had a very high increase in the number of people accessing their services. So we should be able to think positively and say, there is something I can make out of this situation. You can project the future and say, in the next 10 years, what is likely going to happen? There might be a drastic change like this also within the next 10 years. So the message I want us to go with is that we can make a difference. We can make a difference by changing our mindset. And when we adopt a healthy lifestyle by eating right and making sure that the foods that we take, that's a whole different topic about how the foods that we take can affect our mood and our balance and all that, to ensure that at the end of the day, we're able to control the effects, the negative effects of stress.
Sorry, let me take you back. If I get you right, you said we can't avoid stress, but we can control it. Is that the correct phrase?
Yes, okay. We can control the effects of stress on us. Yes. We can't avoid it because the life events will always occur. those life events, we can't escape from someone dying, from someone having an accident, from someone being sick. In fact, getting married is a life event. Moving from one house to another is a life event. So we can't escape it, but we can control the effects on us by changing our perception and making sure that we don't get angered easily, frustrated easily, and discouraged. We need to look at the positive side of everything and embrace the good in everything around
Okay.
us. That would help us to
Okay.
overcome.
Thank you very much once again.